The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Galactic Confederation headquarters. Alan Pierce stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the slow dance of alien ships against the backdrop of unfamiliar constellations. After 5 years as humanity's representative, he still found the view breathtaking. "Commander Pierce, the council session begins in 10 minutes, said his assistant, a young man named Frank Johnson. Alan nodded without turning. "Thank you, Frank. Is the proposal ready?" "Yes, sir. All the data is loaded." Frank hesitated. "Do you think they'll listen this time?" Alan finally turned, a tight smile on his face. "They never do, but we keep trying anyway." The Galactic Confederation chamber was designed to intimidate newcomers. Massive stone columns rose to a ceiling painted with the histories of 100 elder species. Humanity's contribution was a tiny square in the corner, barely noticeable among the grand achievements of races that had traveled the stars while humans were still figuring out agriculture. Alan took his seat at the lower tier, reserved for developing species. Above him sat the Zorlians, the Drakari, and other races that had been part of galactic politics for thousands of years. They looked down, literally and figuratively, on the younger members. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative," announced the Zorlian ambassador, his voice translated through the neural link all representatives wore. His tone suggested he was granting a great favor. Alan stood. "Thank you, Ambassador. I present Earth's proposal for restructuring the galactic energy grid. Our engineers have identified critical weaknesses in sectors 7 through 12. If we don't address these issues soon, we risk catastrophic failures." He waved his hand and holographic displays appeared before each council member, showing detailed analysis and suggested improvements. The Drakari representative, a massive reptilian female, snorted. "More human meddling. Your species has been among the stars for barely a century, yet you presume to lecture us on infrastructure that has functioned for millennia." "Functioning is a generous term," Alan replied evenly. "The Rigel outpost lost power 3 times last month. The Proxima station is operating at 40% capacity. We're offering solutions, not criticism." The Zorlian ambassador's skin rippled with blue patterns, a sign of dismissal in their culture. "We appreciate Earth's enthusiasm, but these systems are delicate. They require the subtle understanding that comes with centuries of experience. Your proposal is declined." And just like that, it was over. No debate, no questions, simply a rejection from on high. Alan felt his face grow hot but maintained his diplomatic smile. This was the 4th proposal rejected this year alone. As the council moved on to other matters, Alan's neural link buzzed with a private message. The ID showed it came from Diane Murphy, one of Earth's top engineers working at a remote Confederation outpost. The message was flagged urgent. After the session ended, Alan retreated to his private office and opened Diane's message. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a tired-looking woman with short red hair. "Commander, I've discovered something you need to see," Diane began without preamble. "For the past 6 months, I've been documenting our maintenance work here at Outpost Vega. What I found is, well, judge for yourself." The display shifted to show technical schematics, work logs, and system diagnostics. Alan wasn't an engineer, but even he could see the pattern. Every critical system in the outpost relied on human modifications and regular maintenance. The original alien technology was elegant but inflexible, incapable of adapting to changing conditions without human intervention. "This isn't just happening at Vega," Diane continued. "I've contacted colleagues at 12 other facilities. It's the same story everywhere. The Confederation's infrastructure is being held together by human ingenuity. Without us, most of these systems would have failed years ago." Alan sat back, stunned by the implications. "Have you shared this with anyone else?" "Just Earth Central. They've confirmed my findings and expanded the investigation, Commander. The preliminary report suggests that if humans stopped maintaining these systems, the Confederation would experience critical failures within months." Alan looked out his window at the gleaming spires of the Confederation capital. The elder races lived in luxury, making decisions and passing judgments while humans and other developing species did the actual work that kept everything running. "Send me everything you have," he said finally, "and keep this quiet for now." After Diane signed off, Alan remained at his desk thinking. Humanity had joined the Confederation expecting to learn from advanced species, to be junior partners in a grand alliance. Instead, they had become the mechanics, the problem solvers, the maintenance crew, essential but unappreciated. He pulled up records of Earth's contributions over the past decade: engineering innovations, medical breakthroughs, diplomatic solutions to conflicts between elder species. In almost every case, humans had offered solutions that the supposedly more advanced races hadn't considered. And in almost every case, those contributions had been minimized, their significance downplayed. That night, Alan couldn't sleep. He paced his quarters, watching the eternal night of space through his viewport. An idea was forming, dangerous, maybe even reckless, but potentially transformative. The next morning, he contacted Earth Central and requested an urgent, secure meeting with Director Nancy Wells. "I've reviewed the data from Engineer Murphy," Nancy said when they connected. Her expression was grave. "What are you suggesting we do with this information?" "Something radical," Alan replied. "For years we've tried to earn respect by being helpful, by proving our worth. It hasn't worked, so maybe we need to show them our worth another way." "I'm listening." "We walk away," Alan said simply. "Not all at once, not dangerously, but systematically. We document everything, train replacements where absolutely necessary for safety, and then we go home." Nancy's eyes widened. "You're talking about withdrawing from the Confederation?" "Not officially, just withdrawing our labor, our creativity, our problem-solving. Let them see what the galaxy looks like without human innovation." "That's an enormous risk," Nancy said. "We could lose everything we've built." "Or we could gain everything we deserve," Alan countered. "Equal standing, real respect, not just platitudes while they treat us like clever pets." Nancy was silent for a long moment. "I'll need to discuss this with the Earth Council, but off the record, I think you might be right." As the call ended, Alan turned back to the viewport. Somewhere out there, thousands of humans were keeping the galaxy running, while being treated as afterthoughts. Perhaps it was time to show the elder races exactly what humanity brought to the stars, by taking it away. The plan would need to be careful, ethical, and thorough. But for the first time in years, Alan felt something like hope. Not the hope of gradual acceptance, but of fundamental change. Sometimes you had to walk away to move forward. 6 months passed. During that time, Alan Pierce and Earth Central worked quietly. They gathered data, documented procedures, and prepared for what they now called Operation Atlas. The name came from an old Earth story about someone who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. The chance to put their plan into action came sooner than expected. Alan was woken in the middle of the night by an urgent alert. His neural link buzzed with emergency codes as he hurried to dress. "What's happening?" he asked as soon as he connected to the Confederation emergency channel. The Zorlian ambassador's face appeared, his skin patterns flashing with alarm patterns. "A massive solar flare from the Castor-Pollux binary system. 3 relay stations are damaged. Energy grid failures reported across multiple sectors." "Casualties?" Alan asked, already moving toward the door. "Unknown. Communications are failing." Alan reached the emergency command center within minutes. The large room was in chaos. Representatives from a dozen species argued loudly while technical staff struggled to make sense of the incoming data. In the middle of it all stood Diane Murphy. She had been called to the capital a month ago to consult on another project, and now her expertise was desperately needed. "The primary power relays are fried," she explained to a group of Confederation engineers. "We need to reroute through the secondary systems." "The secondaries were never designed to handle this load," protested a Drakari engineer. "The surge will overload them within hours." Diane shook her head. "Not if we implement the human bypass protocol." She projected a schematic. "We developed this 3 years ago for exactly this kind of situation. The alien engineers looked skeptical, but they had no better options. As they began to implement Diane's solution, Alan noticed something important. All the human engineers knew exactly what to do. They had prepared for this kind of crisis, developed solutions, and were now putting them into action, while the elder races struggled to keep up. Over the next 12 hours, human-led teams contained the damage. They deployed emergency systems, rerouted power through backup channels, and prevented the crisis from spreading. When the emergency was declared over, it was largely because of human ingenuity and preparation. 3 days later, the Confederation Council called an extraordinary session. Alan took his usual seat, but today something felt different. The elder races couldn't look down on him quite so easily after humans had just saved a significant portion of the galactic infrastructure. The Council recognizes Earth's representative, the Zorlian ambassador announced. There was a new note in his voice, respect, perhaps even a touch of unease. Alan stood. Thank you, Ambassador. In light of recent events, Earth wishes to present a formal petition to the Council. He sent the document to all Council members. There was a moment of silence as they read it, followed by a wave of shocked murmurs. The way. Drakari representative was the first to speak. This is outrageous. You demand equal voting rights on the Council, administrative control over 3 sectors, access to all technological archives? We do, Alan replied calmly. For decades, humans have been maintaining systems we didn't build, solving problems we didn't create, and receiving little recognition or authority in return. Recent events have demonstrated how essential our contributions are. This is blackmail, hissed another council member. You're exploiting a crisis to demand power. Alan shook his head. This isn't blackmail, this is a business proposition. We've been solving your problems while you've been taking credit. That arrangement no longer works for us. The council erupted in angry protests. Alan waited until the noise subsided. Earth is prepared to continue our contributions under the terms outlined in our petition. We believe they are fair and reasonable, given what we bring to the Confederation. Back on Earth, Director Nancy Wells monitored the council session from her office. Beside her sat Jack Palmer, the coordinator of what they now openly called Operation Atlas. They'll never agree, Jack said as they watched the alien representatives argue. Their pride won't allow it. Nancy's expression was grim. Then they leave us no choice. On her desk lay reports from thousands of human workers across the galaxy. Every critical system, every essential maintenance procedure, every workaround and modification had been carefully documented. Human engineers had spent months secretly training backup personnel, mostly from younger species who understood what Earth was attempting, to handle essential safety systems. Begin Phase 2, Nancy ordered. Make sure every human in Confederation service knows the deadline. On the Confederation capital, Alan faced the Council's rejection with practiced diplomacy. We are disappointed by your decision, he said. Earth had hoped for a more productive dialogue. Did you really expect us to cave to your demands? The Zorlian ambassador asked. The Confederation has existed for 50,000 years. Humans have been members for less than a century. Age doesn't always equal wisdom, Alan replied. You have one standard galactic week to reconsider. After that, we walk away. Walk away? The Drakari representative laughed. To where? Earth needs the Confederation far more than we need you. Alan didn't argue. He simply bowed slightly and left the chamber. In his private office, Alan contacted Nancy. It went exactly as we expected, he reported. They rejected our petition and dismissed our deadline. Nancy nodded. All human personnel have been notified. The withdrawal begins in one standard week unless the Council changes its position. They won't, Alan said. They can't imagine we'd actually do it. They think we're bluffing. Then they're about to learn a painful lesson about human resolve. For the next week, Alan attended council sessions as usual. He made no further mention of Earth's petition or the deadline. The elder races seemed to think the crisis had passed. They returned to their normal patterns, dismissing human input and overlooking human contributions. On the final day, Alan requested a brief audience with The Council. Has Earth reconsidered its unreasonable demands? The Zorlian ambassador asked. No, Alan said simply. Has the Council reconsidered its position? Our position remains unchanged. The Confederation will not be bullied. Alan nodded. Then as of this moment, Earth officially begins its labor withdrawal. All non-essential human personnel will cease their duties and return to human-controlled space. The council chamber fell silent. For the first time, Alan saw something new in the eyes of the elder races: uncertainty. You would abandon your posts, your responsibilities? Asked one representative. We are not abandoning anything, Alan replied. We are simply declining to continue working under the current arrangement. You've made it clear that our contributions are not valued appropriately. We accept your assessment and will now focus our efforts elsewhere. As he turned to leave, the Drakari representative called after him. This is a breach of your membership obligations. Alan paused at the door. We're not leaving the Confederation, just withdrawing our labor. Check the charter. There's nothing that requires us to keep solving your problems for you. As the door closed behind him, Alan felt a strange mix of dread and exhilaration. They had crossed the point of no return. Now they would see if the galaxy could function without human ingenuity. The withdrawal began quietly. There were no dramatic announcements, no public protests. Human workers simply completed their shifts, submitted proper documentation, and didn't return. On the first day, the Confederation barely noticed. By the end of the week, the first reports of minor system failures began to reach the Council. Diane Murphy oversaw the technical aspects of the withdrawal from a command center on Earth. Her job was to ensure no critical safety systems were compromised. Status. Report, she requested during the morning briefing. A young engineer named Peter Collins brought up a galactic display. 97% of non-essential personnel have withdrawn according to schedule. The remaining 3% are completing handover procedures. Any problems? Some local officials are trying to prevent departures, Peter said. The Drakari administrator on Outpost 7 threatened to detain our people. Diane frowned. And? They left anyway. The Drakari discovered they couldn't operate the life support systems without them, so they had to let them go. Diane nodded, satisfied. The plan was working exactly as they had predicted. Alien administrators were learning just how dependent they had become on human expertise. What about safety protocols, she asked. All essential life support and emergency systems have either backup operators or automated sequences, Peter assured her. We're not monsters. No one will die because of our withdrawal. Good, Diane said firmly. We just want to be treated as equals, not cause suffering. On the Confederation capital, Alan Pierce received a steady stream of messages from increasingly worried officials. They all said essentially the same thing. Systems were failing and no one understood how to fix them. The Zorlian ambassador requested a private meeting on the third day. This has gone far enough, he said as soon as Alan entered the room. His skin patterns flashed with stress and anger. Your people must return to their duties immediately. Under what terms? Alan asked calmly. This isn't a negotiation. You're violating your obligations to the Confederation. We've violated nothing, Alan replied. Every human has followed proper resignation procedures. We've ensured all critical safety systems have backup operators. We've even provided documentation for all our work. Documentation that no one can understand, the ambassador snapped. Your solutions are incomprehensible to our engineers. Alan spread his hands. That's not our problem. You've always claimed superior knowledge and ability. Surely the elder races can manage without human assistance. The ambassador's skin darkened to a deep purple, a sign of intense frustration. What do you want, Pierce? The same thing we wanted a week ago. Equal voting rights on the council. Administrative control over the sectors we've been maintaining. Access to the technological archives currently restricted to elder races. Impossible. The ambassador turned away. The council will never agree. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Alan headed for the door, then paused. When the council changes its mind, and it will, you know how to contact me. Across the galaxy, the effects of the human withdrawal grew more noticeable. Trade routes were disrupted as navigation beacons failed. Communication between systems became unreliable. Power distribution networks operated at minimal capacity. On colony worlds with mixed populations, humans faced difficult choices. Steve Rodriguez, governor of New Montana Colony, called an emergency meeting with the local alien representatives. "I've received orders to withdraw," he told them. "But I don't want to leave you without support." A Telbari elder, one of the younger species in the Confederation, clicked her mandibles anxiously. "If you go, our water purification system will fail within days. We don't understand how it works." Steve nodded. "I know. That's why I've decided to stay, along with my essential staff. We'll maintain critical systems while you train replacements." The Telbari's compound eyes widened in surprise. "You would defy your own government?" "I'm not defying anyone," Steve said. "Earth's withdrawal is about forcing recognition of our contributions, not causing harm. We can make our point without putting your people at risk." Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. While most humans departed according to plan, some chose to remain where their absence would cause immediate suffering. Earth Central accepted these exceptions, understanding that the moral complexity of their action required flexibility. By the end of the first month, over 60% of human personnel had withdrawn from Confederation service. The effects were already severe, but the elder races still believed they could weather the crisis. That changed when the hyperspace beacon network in the Cygnus arm went offline. The beacons were essential for safe, faster-than-light travel. Without them, thousands of ships found themselves stranded or forced to use dangerous navigational calculations. Commerce in 3 sectors ground to a halt. The Confederation's engineers tried desperately to restore the network. They studied the human documentation, attempted to reverse engineer the modifications, and even offered enormous bounties to any humans willing to return to service. Nothing worked. The beacons remained offline. 2 months into the withdrawal, Alan received a message from Director Wells. "How are things on your end?" she asked when they connected. "Increasingly tense," Alan replied. "The elder races are finally realizing this isn't a temporary protest. How are we doing on Earth?" "Better than expected," Nancy said. "Our independent systems are functioning well. Some of our colonies are struggling without Confederation resources, but we're adapting." "And public opinion?" Nancy's expression grew more serious. "Mixed. Many support our stand, but others worry about the suffering we're causing. There have been protests outside Earth Central." Alan wasn't surprised. Humans had always been divided. On major decisions, it was one of their strengths and occasionally a weakness. "The Drakari have seized control of 3 disputed sectors," Nancy continued. "They claim they're restoring order. The Zorlians have retreated into isolation. The Confederation is fragmenting, Alan." "That was always a risk," he acknowledged. "But we've come too far to back down now. If we return without securing our demands, we'll be worse off than before." By the 3rd month, over 90% of human personnel had withdrawn. The galaxy had never experienced a crisis of this magnitude. Ancient rivalries between species resurfaced as the connective infrastructure humans had maintained continued to fail. The council finally called an emergency session. Alan attended, noting that for the first time, representatives from younger species had been invited to participate. The Zorlian ambassador spoke first. "The situation has become untenable. We are prepared to discuss Earth's requests." Alan shook his head. "They're not requests anymore, they're requirements, equal voting rights, administrative control of the sectors we maintain, full access to technological archives." "And if we agree?" asked the Drakari representative. "Your people will return to service?" "Immediately," Alan confirmed, "with full documentation and training programs to ensure this kind of dependency never happens again." The elder races exchanged glances. They had expected humans to break under pressure, to come crawling back out of necessity. Instead, their own mighty confederation was crumbling while humanity stood firm. "We will need time to consider," the Zorlian ambassador said finally. "Take all the time you need. Alan replied as he stood to leave. But understand this. We won't accept partial measures or temporary privileges. We want structural change. As he walked out of the council chamber, Alan knew they were approaching the breaking point. The elder races would either accept the new reality or watch their confederation collapse completely. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months into the withdrawal, the Galactic Confederation existed mostly in name only. The Grand Alliance that had stood for 50,000 years was falling apart without human maintenance. The Drakari Imperium now controlled 5 sectors, not just the 3 they had initially seized. They moved their military forces with little resistance, claiming they were securing trade routes and protecting vulnerable populations. In reality, they were exploiting the power vacuum. The Zorlian Collective had completely sealed their borders. Their ancient consciousness focused inward, working desperately to preserve their own systems. They had always considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy, but now struggled with technology they once took for granted. On Earth, the situation was increasingly tense. Most humans supported the withdrawal at first, proud of their species' stand against the elder races. But as reports of suffering reached them, many began to question whether they had gone too far. Kate Miller led the largest protest outside Earth Central headquarters. She stood on a makeshift platform addressing a crowd of thousands. "We wanted respect, not collapse," she shouted into her microphone. "Millions are suffering while we make our point. There must be a better way." The crowd cheered in agreement. Signs reading, "Return to service" and "Negotiate now," waved above their heads. Inside his office, Alan Pierce watched the protest on a screen. His face showed the strain of the past months. Dark circles under his eyes revealed sleepless nights. Spent wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. Director Wells entered without knocking. "The council has made another offer," she said, placing a data pad on his desk. Alan picked it up and scrolled through the document. More partial concessions. They still don't understand. The moment this crisis passes, they'll revert to the old power structure. "Maybe that's all we can realistically expect," Nancy suggested. "The protests are growing. Public opinion is shifting against us." Alan shook his head firmly. "If we give in now, we'll never get another chance. The elder races will make sure of that." Later that day, Alan sat alone in his quarters reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The suffering was worse than they had anticipated. Food shortages on border worlds, medical facilities without power, refugee ships adrift without navigation. His neural link chimed with an incoming message. The ID was unfamiliar, but the security, authorization was high level. A young alien face appeared in the holographic display. Alan recognized the species, Telbari, one of the younger members of the Confederation. "Ambassador Pierce," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Lorix, junior representative of the Telbari Union. I need to speak with you in person, privately." Alan was intrigued. The Telbari had only joined the Confederation 50 years ago, newcomers by galactic standards. "May I ask what this is about?" "Not over this channel," Lorix replied. "But I believe we share a common goal. I am coming to Earth on a cultural exchange. Can we meet?" Alan agreed, his curiosity piqued. 2 days later, Alan met Lorix in a quiet garden on the grounds of Earth Central. The Telbari was smaller than most of her kind, with iridescent scales and large expressive eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," she said as they walked among earth plants that must have seemed alien to her. "What I am about to propose could be considered treason by the elder races." "I'm listening," Alan said. "The Telbari and several other younger species have been meeting secretly. We believe the Confederation is dying, and perhaps it should. It has become stagnant, controlled by species who haven't had a new idea in millennia." Alan stopped walking and faced her directly. "What exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance," Lorix said simply, "between humans and the younger species. Together, we can build something new from the ashes of the Confederation, something equal where innovation is valued over age." "The elder races would never accept that," Alan pointed out. Lorix made a gesture that Alan interpreted as the Telbari equivalent of a smile. They may not have a choice. While they've been trying to maintain control, we've been learning from your example. Many of us have been quietly documenting our own contributions. For the first time in months, Alan felt a surge of hope. Humanity had never wanted to stand alone against the galaxy. They had only wanted fair treatment. An alliance with younger species who shared their vision could change everything. "I'll need to discuss this with Earth Central," he said. "But personally, I think this could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." When Alan brought Lorix's proposal to Director Wells, she was cautiously optimistic. "It changes the equation," she admitted. "Instead of humans against the Confederation, it becomes reform versus stagnation. But can these younger species actually help? Do they have the technological capacity?" "Different species have different strengths," Alan explained. "The Telbari have exceptional biological science. The Narvoks understand energy systems better than anyone. Combined with human innovation, we could rebuild what's been lost, maybe even improve it." Over the next few weeks, representatives from 7 younger species met secretly on Earth. They formulated a plan that would fundamentally reshape galactic politics. As these meetings continued, 3 of the elder races finally broke ranks and agreed to negotiate with humanity. They offered significant concessions, hoping to entice humans back before the Confederation collapsed completely. The Zorlian ambassador presented their offer personally to Alan. "Equal voting rights for Earth," he said, his skin patterns showing unusual submission. "Administrative authority over 2 sectors. Limited access to technological archives." Alan studied the formal document. "And what happens after the crisis passes? What guarantees do we have that these rights won't be quietly stripped away?" "You have our word," the ambassador replied stiffly. "Not good enough," Alan said. "We want these changes written into the Confederation Charter, with enforcement mechanisms that don't rely on the goodwill of the elder races." The ambassador's skin flashed with anger. "You push too far, human. Be grateful for what we offer." "Your offer addresses symptoms, not causes," Alan replied. "The problem isn't just how humans are treated, it's how the Confederation functions. A system where age grants automatic authority is fundamentally flawed. You would remake a 50,000-year-old institution to suit your human values?" The ambassador's tone was incredulous. "Not just human values," Alan corrected. "Ask the Telbari what they think, or the Narvoks, or any species that joined the Confederation in the last 1,000 years. You'll find we're not alone in wanting change." The ambassador left without a response, but Alan knew his message had been received. The elder races now faced a choice. Meaningful. Reform or total collapse. That night, Alan stood on his balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans and aliens were suffering because of the stand Earth had taken. He felt the weight of that responsibility heavily. A message from Kate Miller, the protest leader, appeared on his neural link. He almost dismissed it, expecting more criticism, but something made him accept the call. "Commander Pierce," she began, formally, "I've been reviewing the reports from our negotiations with the younger species." "And?" Alan asked warily. "And I was wrong," Kate admitted. "I wanted a quick end to the suffering, but your approach will create lasting change. My group is switching from protest to support. We'll help however we can." Alan thanked her, feeling a small burden lift from his shoulders. Earth was uniting behind their cause, just as the Confederation was fragmenting. The next day, the Council called an emergency session. The subject, the future of the Galactic Confederation. 1 year after the human withdrawal began, representatives from 37 species gathered in the Grand Council chamber. The room felt different now. The elder races no longer sat on elevated platforms. All seats had been arranged in a circle, symbolizing the equality that would form the foundation of whatever came next. Alan Pierce took his place among the human delegation. Beside him sat Lorix of the Telbari and representatives from 6 other younger species who had allied with Earth. Across the circle, the elder races watched with a mixture of resignation and resentment. The Zorlian ambassador rose to speak first. For 50,000 years, the Galactic Confederation has maintained order among the stars. Today, we acknowledge that this era has ended. His skin patterns showed no emotion as he continued. The Confederation, in its traditional form, is dissolved. In its place, we propose a new entity, governed by new principles. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Even though everyone had known this moment was coming, hearing it stated officially was still shocking. A Drakari representative interrupted. "This is unnecessary. If the humans would simply return to their duties." "That is not going to happen," Alan said firmly. "Not under the old system." The Drakari hissed in frustration but fell silent. The Zorlian continued. "A committee representing all species has drafted a charter for a new organization, the Interstellar Cooperative. The name had been carefully chosen. Not a confederation, which implied separate but allied powers. Not an empire or union, which suggested central control. A cooperative, a structure where all members contributed and benefited equally. As the terms of the new charter were presented, Alan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Equal representation regardless of a species' age or traditional status. Technology, sharing requirements, rotating leadership. Everything humanity had fought for was being implemented. If these terms are accepted, the Zorlian concluded, we ask that human personnel return to their posts throughout galactic space to help restore essential systems. All eyes turned to the human delegation. As Earth's representative, it fell to Alan to respond. He stood slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity accepts these terms. Our engineers and administrators will begin returning to their posts immediately. However, they will work openly with counterparts from all species, teaching rather than simply doing. The goal is to ensure no single species becomes indispensable again. The vote that followed was largely ceremonial. The new charter passed with overwhelming support from younger species. Most elder races abstained, unable to fully embrace the new order but powerless to prevent it. As the historic session ended, Alan found himself face-to-face with the Zorlian ambassador. "You have achieved what you wanted," the Zorlian said. His skin patterns were unreadable. "I hope it was worth the cost." Alan thought of the suffering caused by the withdrawal, the hardships endured by countless beings across the galaxy. "It wasn't about what humans wanted," he replied. "It was about what the galaxy needed. Change is painful, but stagnation is fatal." The Zorlian studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps," he said finally. "We shall see what this new order brings." He turned and walked away, his posture suggesting a dignity wounded but not broken. 2 months later, Alan watched from a viewing platform as human technicians returned to the Confederation, now cooperative capital. They worked alongside aliens from a dozen species, repairing systems that had failed during the withdrawal. Diane Murphy had been appointed head of the new Cooperative Technology Exchange, ensuring that technical knowledge flowed freely between all member species. She approached Alan with a satisfied smile. "The power grid is back to 80% capacity," she reported. "Communications are stable in all but the outer sectors. It's going better than we expected." "And how are the elder races adapting?" Alan asked. "Some better than others. The Zorlians are actually contributing ancient knowledge they've hoarded for millennia. The Drakari are more resistant, but they're participating." Alan nodded, pleased. "And the others? The ones who retreated to their ancestral territories?" Diane's expression grew more serious. "They're isolating themselves, refusing to join the cooperative. It's their choice, but they'll fall further behind with each passing year." This had been anticipated. Some species would never accept a galactic order, where they weren't automatically granted authority. They would remain on the margins, clinging to past glory while the rest of the galaxy moved forward. Later that month, Alan traveled to New Montana Colony to meet with Governor Steve Rodriguez. The colony had become a symbol of the new cooperation between species. Rodriguez had remained at his post throughout the withdrawal, maintaining essential systems for all inhabitants regardless of species. "The council wants to establish a training center here," Alan explained as they toured the colony. to teach cooperative maintenance techniques to mixed species groups. Steve nodded approvingly. We'd be honored. Our people have already been doing that informally. They passed a park where human and alien children played together. The scene gave Alan hope for the future, a generation growing up without the prejudices and hierarchies of the past. 6 months after the formation of the YAO Interstellar Cooperative, Alan prepared to step down as Earth's chief representative. He had accepted a new role, traveling between worlds to help implement the cooperative model at the local level. In his final address to Earth Central, he reflected on their journey. We never wanted to rule the galaxy, he told the assembled officials. We just refused to be ruled by it. What began as a labor dispute became a revolution, not through violence or technological superiority, but through absence. By walking away, we forced the galaxy to recognize our value. Director Wells, who would soon retire herself, raised a glass in his honor. To the power of saying no, she toasted, and to the courage to walk away. As Alan looked around at the faces of those who had planned and executed the withdrawal, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Humanity had changed the course of galactic history not by conquest or dominance, but by simply refusing to participate in an unjust system. They had walked away and taken their power with them. When they returned, it was on their terms, not as servants or junior partners, but as equals. In doing so, they had created something better for all species. The greatest revolution in galactic history had been quiet, determined, and ultimately unstoppable. Just like humanity itself.